Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tobian. I will retell the plot of the book for you. Vasily Golovachev, The Shadow of Lucifer's Wing. Summit 1. The Beginner. Two friends, Nikita Sukhov and Toya Vatakida. Nikita, also known as Nick or Kit, is a dancer, acrobat, gymnast, and an all-around athlete. He dances in a ballet troupe and even performs as a soloist. And Toya, also known as Tolya, an electronics engineer by profession, but a martial arts master and something of a philosopher by calling. He holds a black belt in Aikijutsu. They were standing in a park, reminiscing about Nikita's recent performance. He had danced brilliantly, so much so that Tolya wondered if the performance had been a farewell. There were reasons to suspect so. And Nikita remembered how they had first met. They met at a bathhouse that Nikita usually visited with a friend. But one day, the friend didn't show up, and Nick went alone. He was in the steam room when a young, unfamiliar Japanese man approached him. The man had some European features too, overall, a very mixed and interesting appearance. He introduced himself as Tolya. The Japanese man pointed out some unusual moles on Nikita's shoulder. They looked like 4 sevens. Tolya explained that he was into esotericism and magical mathematics and knew a thing or two about such signs. He also had numerical birthmarks himself. He showed them to Nikita. They were 3/8. Tolya explained that, according to esoteric beliefs, his 3/8 were a sign of great debt, while Nikita's 4 sevens were the mark of an angel. Supposedly, the latter meant that the person was in constant danger. Nikita was intrigued by the conversation. They talked further and eventually became friends. Tolya was 6 years older. And now, here they were, chatting in the park. Tolya offered to introduce Nikita to a beautiful girl, but, as usual, Nick declined the temptation. They chatted about the similarities and differences between dance and martial arts. Nikita believed that dance required far greater body control and was overall more developing. Dance, acrobatics, gymnastics, all of it came naturally to Sukhov, as if given by God. One day, he got into a good ballet troupe. And although the troupe was strong, he quickly began to outgrow the other dancers. But he wasn't given lead roles and wasn't allowed to realize his full potential. So, he found a prestigious competition and spent a whole year preparing for it. He created and honed a unique performance, rehearsing it in secret without showing it to anyone. But today, he snapped. After rehearsal, he stayed behind and performed for 20 minutes in front of the group, inspired by a sudden rush of emotion. Word of the impromptu performance spread quickly throughout the theater, and many people came running to see it. The performance caused a sensation and stunned everyone. But for Nikita, it truly was a farewell. He had finally decided to look for a new place that would match his talent. And now they were standing in the park, after the performance. Tolya offered to walk Sukhov home, but Nick refused, saying he wanted to walk through the park alone and think by himself. He was just about to start moving when suddenly he heard a strange noise. At first, there were some hooting whistles, then a rumble that made the ground shake. Then an explosion, and hissing, and the sound of running. The sky lit up with flashes of blue and green, and then everything went silent. Nikita was bewildered. What could that have been? Takeda, meanwhile, checked a peculiar ring on his hand. It was a strangely shaped ring. At that moment, a symbol glowed on it, a ruby-colored hexagon. Tolya didn't like that, and he quietly slipped away into the night to scout out the situation. He was a true master of martial arts and could move silently and swiftly, like a ninja. Nikita remained alone. He headed toward his car, but hadn't gone even a third of the way when he heard new cries and groans coming from somewhere behind the bushes. Suckhof froze, unsure what to do. He didn't like to rush into danger. It was too dark to see what was going on behind the bushes. Suddenly, 4 men in mottled jumpsuits stepped onto the path in front of him. They were carrying strange briefcases with glowing corners and locks, and even stranger spear-like rods. At first, Nick wasn't too alarmed. But he immediately grew wary and asked what those guys had heard, what was going on. One of the 4, a huge man built like a wardrobe, pointed a spear straight at Suckhof's chest and ordered him to leave. Nikita got a look at his face. It was chalk white, with huge black pupils in unfriendly eyes, a black mouth with thin, straight lips, and a triangular flap of a nose. There was little human about it. Nikita started to protest, but the camouflaged trooper jabbed the spear into his chest, piercing his shirt and nicking the skin. The dancer grabbed the end of the spear, trying to push it away. No use. A jolt of electricity hit him. The trooper's eyes, very dark, seemed to hypnotize him. Nikita wasn't about to back down. He started to fight. He tried to yank the spear from his opponent, but received another electric shock. He dodged a lazy swing of the briefcase and rolled to the side. But then, a new figure appeared on the scene. It was an old grey-haired man in a bloody and torn cloak. He was badly wounded, nearly dead, his eyes gouged out, his tongue torn out. His nails scraped against the asphalt. He needed help. But instead, the approaching trooper simply ran him through with his spear. Suckhof immediately cried out in protest, but was struck by the enemy, the blow knocking him down on the pavement. He got back up and tried to strike his opponent with a jumping kick. Then with his hand, while simultaneously dodging repeated swings of the briefcase and jabs from the spear. The fight was intense, but the trooper moved so quickly, and at the same time so lazily, as if it took him no effort, that Suckhof couldn't even touch him. Eventually, Nikita was hit again, this time the spear pierced his shoulder. It felt like a paralyzing chill, not just electricity. Nikita collapsed, powerless and furious, while the trooper played with the spear near his face. His companions then called out that someone else was running toward them, and the 4 of them quickly retreated. But before leaving, the man, or whatever he was, said to Suckhof, "You're weak. Not for the path. You'll die." His voice was menacing, and once again, not quite human. The troopers vanished into the night. And Takeda reappeared, running toward Nikita. Tolya was relieved to see Nick was still alive, and asked what the strangers looked like. Nick described them, adding that they weren't people at all, more like demons, with spears. Upon hearing this, Takeda turned pale and said that it was an SS squad, or maybe the Black Commissars. To which Suckhof reasonably replied that they didn't look the part, the uniforms were different. But Tolya clarified that he didn't mean the old organizations from the Revolution era. These abbreviations stood for the Satan Suite and the Black Commandos. Nikita replied that this all sounded like nonsense and suggested checking on the wounded old man. Tolya advised against it, there was nothing to be done, and getting involved could bring trouble. Nikita approached and turned the old man onto his back, and immediately recoiled. Where his nipples and ribs should have been were 4 eyes. 3 were cloudy, but 1 still glimmered with life. And that eye looked at Suckhof. It judged him, then the man raised his hand. And into that hand, it seemed, gathered all the life still left in him. The hand began to glow, like molten glass. In its center appeared a blue star, which then shifted through a series of other geometric symbols, and finally took the shape of a 5-pointed star. He stretched his hand toward Nikita, groaning in plea. At first Nikita just stared in confusion, then made up his mind and took the hand, placing his palm against the old man's. He was jolted again, like an electric shock. And then the old man's hand went limp. He was dead. The star had vanished from his hand. But it had reappeared, on Sukhof's own palm, like a black burn. Tolyan noted that the 5-pointed star is a symbol of eternity and perfection. He said it was a sign of the gods Thoth and Quetzalcoatl, and also the key of King Solomon. But then he saw that his friend Nick could barely stay on his feet. He caught him, and helped him home. Once there, Nikita quickly lost consciousness.